Iran is on fire. The camera opens on a horizon of red, windows hissing out heat, sirens drowned by the crowd's roar. Chants ricocheting off concrete canyons from Tehran to the satellite city of Karaj. It's the 12th straight night, and a nation that's learned to whisper is shouting again. The frame lingers on a building engulfed in flame. Footage circulating online claims it's the main municipal complex in Karaj, a symbol of local authority swallowed by orange. Whether every clip is verified or not, the message is, this is not a scuffle, it's a reckoning with the state itself. Listen closely and you'll hear a new line added to an old chorus, in your dreams. It's a taunt in Persian, the cutting comeback Elon Musk posted under a proclamation from Iran's Supreme Leader. And now it's bouncing through streets and squares, repurposed as a protest chant aimed straight at the top. This is Iran remixing power into a meme, flipping a viral reply into a rallying cry. When a regime that rules by gravitas meets a generation fluent in irony, the battleground shifts from parliament halls and mosques to timelines and alleyways, from forbidden speech to contagious satire. The chants really are out there. Multiple clips and Persian outlets have flagged them. The internet tried to go dark. The echo did not. Start where this began. December 28th, 2025. The rial collapses, inflation spikes, and the pressure cooker hisses. At first, it looks like the typical Iranian cycle. Prices soar, merchants shudder, riot police march. But this time, the map lights up. Not just the bazaar in Tehran, but dozens upon dozens of cities, from Avaz to Mashhad to Shiraz. This time, the slogans leap from bread and butter to end the rule. By early January, the government yanks the cord on the internet nationwide, trying to smother coordination, visibility, and morale. If you're getting déjà vu from 2009 and 2022, you're not wrong, but the scale and symbols feel different. Analysts and reporters are calling this the largest unrest since the post-Mahsa Amini uprising, and possibly the biggest since 1979. The regime's response is textbook. Accuse foreign hands, deploy the security stack, police, plainclothes, besiege and IRGC units, and promise no leniency. Tehran's prosecutors have telegraphed capital punishment for those tied to burning state buildings. Human rights monitors and independent outlets tally the dead and detained. The numbers vary with the blackout's thickness, but they all tell the same story. People shot, beaten, vanished. Reuters put the death toll above 60 by January 9th. Others list lower or higher, but nobody credible says zero. And yes, phone and data blackouts are confirmed. Even as coverage is fragmented, you can see the pattern. The streets mutate in real time. What began with shopkeepers and students morphs into an assault on the state's iconography. In some cities, protesters set mosques and government offices ablaze. In others, they topple or torch images of Ayatollah Khamenei and Ayatollah Khamenei. Most symbolically, statues of Qasem Soleimani, the regime's sanctified general, immortalized on plinths nationwide, are attacked, defaced, or set on fire. Videos show it in multiple towns. Western reporters have noted at least one statue pushed down and others scorched on Soleimani's death anniversary. To a government that spends fortunes on narrative, that's body blow propaganda. Then there's a flag, not the green, white, red with a stylized Allah. The lion and sun, the old monarchy tricolour the Islamic Republic banned from public life. Suddenly it's back, fluttering over marches and squares. A generational line many thought erased is now painted on bedsheets and hoisted above bonfires. The forward-looking fear of the 2000s has fused with something older, a sense of stolen continuity that refuses to stay buried. When the old flag rises, it isn't a collective platform so much as a collective no. It says, your story is not the only story. Outlets from London to Tel Aviv have reported the monarchy flag spotted in provincial squares, and diaspora outlets are amplifying the imagery. If you want the macro frame, it's brutally simple. The rial is in freefall. Inflation is crushing. Years of sanctions, corruption, mismanagement, and wars have hollowed out the economy. Add the shock of a region still reeling from a year of escalations and the residue of 2022's protests, and you get a perfect storm. The clerical state still commands men, money, and machinery, but less legitimacy than ever. When a system loses the ability to deliver prosperity and dignity, it must trade ever more fear to keep the lights on. Fear, however, is a depreciating currency. The more you spend, the less it buys. Zoom back into Karaj. For years, this industrial satellite of Tehran has been a bellwether. When Karaj moves, the capital notices. As protests intensify, night brings roadblocks and barricades. Fires sprout at intersections. Footage shows crowds pushing riot police back with rocks and debris. One viral clip claims the municipal complex is fully ablaze, unverified like many battlefield-adjacent videos, but consistent with a national pattern of arson against regime symbols this week. Newsrooms from Istanbul to Delhi are tracing clusters of fires, warning shots, and live rounds across the country. Even with the internet throttled, the smoke draws its own map.
Now the international angle. Washington's message snapped into focus. If they start killing people as they have in the past, we will get involved, hitting them very, very hard. That line, delivered by President Trump in interviews and aboard Air Force One, is less a whisper than a warning. He's also posted blunt threats on social media, promising intervention if peaceful demonstrators are massacred. European leaders have condemned the killings and urged restraint. Whether you take those statements as a deterrent or gasoline depends on your priors, but everyone understands the stakes. The White House is telling Tehran, don't make this 2019 again. Don't make it 2022 on loop. Inside Iran, the rulers are not blinking on camera. Khamenei has dismissed the crowds as vandals in the pay of foreigners, and the judiciary is openly promising punishment without legal leniency. When a system's public face hardens like this, it signals a bet that the security bloc can outlast the streets. It's a bet the leadership has won before: 1999, 2009, 2019, 2022. But each victory costs reserve legitimacy the state has never truly replenished. The more it leans on the truncheon, the more it needs it the next time.
Here's the on-the-ground anatomy many Iranians know by heart. First night, a spark, a shout in the bazaar, a march at a university gate. Second night, riot police, tear gas canisters, motorbike charges. Third night, the besieged roll in, teenagers with batons, veterans with shotguns. Then the IRGC shadows the perimeter and plainclothesmen take the flanks. Cameras are smashed, then phones. The internet starts to stutter. Ambulances become suspect. Hospitals risk becoming hunting grounds. At some point, a bystander becomes a martyr, and the chants change. Instead of bargaining, lower prices, freeing the students, they become categorical. End it. End you. The counter-anatomy is practiced too. Protest corps decentralize. Telegram channels fracture into neighborhood cells and time windows. If there's no online map, the streets generate analog ones. A whistle, a firework, a phone chain. Symbols matter more. A statue toppled is 1,000 slogans saved. A banned flag is 1,000 arguments in color. A meme that jumps into a chant is a shortcut past fear. A way to laugh at a state that insists it cannot be mocked. It's striking how In Your Dreams migrated from a billionaire's reply into a nationwide wink. A reminder that culture travels paths police lines can't block.
What does this mean strategically?
First, the regime's coercive capacity remains formidable. If you're waiting for armored columns to flip, you'll be waiting a while. But the political temperature is higher than at any time since 1979. Not because the crowds are larger than that revolution, they aren't, but because the elite's pathways to de-escalation are narrower. The elected president can offer empathy and micro-reforms, but real authority in crises like this sits with Khamenei and the Revolutionary Guards. Unless they initiate true concessions, and they have not, the game tree reduces to two grim branches: repression that works, or repression that metastasizes the resistance. The first buys time, the second buys fate. Second, international messaging matters, not because jets will fly tomorrow, but because words shape calculations. Tehran is testing whether a violent crackdown will trigger kinetic consequences. Washington is testing whether threatened consequences can deter a massacre. Europe is testing whether censure keeps leverage later. Everyone is watching for a trigger that moves this from domestic unrest to a regional crisis. One mistake on the street, one missile on the wrong radar, and January 2026 could write checks none of these actors can cash. Third, narrative warfare is not a sideshow. Authoritarian states thrive on inevitability, the feeling that nothing you do matters because nothing ever changes. These protests puncture inevitability with spectacle. A state TV building burned here, a governorate gate torched there, a revered statue set alight. Images like that erode the aura that the system is immortal. That's why they a blackout, not only to sever coordination, but to starve images that do reputational damage from Mashhad to Mashhad and from Brussels to Beijing. Yet night after night, the pictures leak, and once images exist, they exist everywhere. So where is this story heading? A cautious answer, not to a clean ending. Revolutions are rarely a single cresting wave. They're storm seasons. Even if the security services crush the current swell, the structural forces driving it, demographic impatience, economic calamity, governance fatigue, remain. Each cycle shrinks the regime's space for error and expands the public's repertoire of resistance. Today's teenagers learned from 2022. Today's 40-somethings remember 2009. If 2026 adds anything new, it may be the fusing of jest and rage. The way an online quip becomes a street refrain that becomes a dare. If your power demands our silence to function, how much power do you really have?
Someone will ask, but what about the flags, the chants for monarchy, the nostalgia? Those images are real, but they're not a single program, any more than death to the dictator is a policy paper. They're a permission structure to imagine an Iran that isn't run by clerics, an Iran rooted in its pre-1979 identity without the shame of heresy. That's why the old lion prowls the new streets. Not because everyone wants a crown back, but because they want a past to choose from, and a future not chosen for them. When a government insists that it is sacred, and someone turns its slogans into punchlines, the sanctity cracks. The chant, "In your dreams," is also a legal brief, a compact way to argue that the regime's claims about destiny and enemies are just that, claims. Plus, there's a practical advantage. You can't arrest 1,000 punchlines. Well, you can try, but the paperwork is murder. This is not to say memes beat batons. It's to say that in 2026, any analysis that ignores the meme-to-street pipeline is missing half the battlefield. On the other side, don't underestimate the will to fight. The IRGC and Besiege are built for nights like these. Careerists and true believers share a survival instinct. If the street wins, they lose everything. That creates a coherence that pure fear can't. It's why, even after a dozen nights, the state can still surge force at the right choke points, still make examples, still scare enough families back indoors to blunt momentum. That's the cold calculus the protesters know, and the reason funerals keep refilling the squares. So, what should we watch next? 3 signals. First, labour. If refinery workers, truckers, or teachers strike in a sustained, coordinated fashion, you move from protest to pressure. Second, defections. Not top generals on TV, that's fantasy, but prosecutors refusing death cases, local police holding fire, provincial officials hedging on camera. Third, diaspora to home coordination. Money, medical supply chains, legal aid. Pair those with the nightly cat and mouse, and you have a campaign that can survive beyond adrenaline. One more thing, external escalation. If the regime decides that pressure at home demands a demonstration abroad, the risk vector widens. Rockets from a proxy, an arrest of dual nationals, a seizure in the Strait. Those moves sometimes buy domestic calm and international distraction. Just as often, they backfire, giving foreign capitals the casus belli to turn threats into strikes. If you're hearing the phrase "very, very hard" on cable and in cabinet rooms, that's not random. It's contingency planning floating to the surface. We end where we began, with fire. Cities are not meant to burn this often.
Governments are not meant to fear their own flags. People are not meant to time their courage to a window between data blackouts. Yet here Iran is, again, summoning its future in the present tense. The system can still swing the hammer, the street can still absorb the blow, but something fundamental has shifted. The belief that fear is forever. And once a people learns that lesson, it does not unlearn it. Tonight, the chant skips across rooftops, a dare disguised as a joke. In your dreams. The camera tracks the sound as it climbs. Somewhere a statue cracks. Somewhere a wall is repainted. Somewhere a parent presses a protest scarf into a child's hands. The refrain rises, irreverent and impossible to file. Power wanted silence. It got a punchline that won't sit down. If the regime thinks this is just smoke, it should listen more carefully. That's not just fire. That's a country clearing its throat.